Let's get this puppy started. All right. Heidi Rudliff. Man, that's a new one. Rudliff, Brazil. Like that. That's a new name to me. Anyway, welcome everybody. We'll get started in just a minute. Welcome. We're going to be talking about data collection and best practices and all that kind of stuff with this character that you see here, Jamie Blackburn. And
good morning.
And Kelly's going to be joining us. We had technical difficulty. Is she back yet? She's back. Hold on a second. Where we go. Hold on a second, Kelly. I'm making you a co-host that you can share your video. Hopefully this works, ladies and gentlemen, because we had Zoom issues. There she is. It's a Christmas miracle. All right.
I think it looks like I'm on a bus. I am. I'm on a mobile research unit. So.
Oh, wow. Look at that. You're out in the field?
That's right.
Funny. And you did the backdrop thing with it. That is awesome. Well, you're wondering if you know any scientists. You got one sitting right here. She's out in the field. How you like that? You talk about dedication. That's what I'm talking about. All right, I'm going to share out my screen real quick. Let's see if this actually works with all the Zoom issues that we've had so far. So we're going to be talking about that. So the question today, you ready for this, Jamie? You ready for this, Kelly? All right. Question for today is where you're from, and just out of curiosity, who is your favorite sports team? And if you're from Pittsburgh, you're going to have to leave. Just saying. So there you go. So where are you from? And who's your favorite sports team? And I'll tell you what, the Orioles are cranking too. So I got two, but that goes in the chat. So the chat can go to everybody, right? Is that what I'm doing? I'm sending it to everybody. There we go. All right. So I'm from Woodstock, Maryland, and Ravens. We got our first pseudo game today.
Pseudo game.
It's a pseudo game. New York Giants, you can stay. And if you don't like sports, that's okay anyway. What happened here? I need to send this to everyone. Okay, here we go. All right, there he goes. Woodstock, Maryland. New York Yankees, Giants, and Knicks. Man, you got them all. All right. Hebron, Maryland. All right. And Phillies. Fort Myers, Florida, Dolphins. Dolphins, interesting world they're in today, isn't it? Yeah. Gatesville, Texas. No sports for Christopher. That's okay. We don't judge here, do we, Jamie?
Nope.
No judgment. All right, who else we got? New Orleans Saints with New Orleans from Eric. Love it. I'm glad you're here, Eric. You got a couple of things that you popped in. I think it was you that popped in some questions, so we'll get to you for sure. So from Chicago, live in Raleigh, Chicago, Blackhawks. Love it. Annapolis, Maryland, Eagles, and Phillies. Obviously, Carl, you're not from Annapolis, really. You're from Philly. All right, Fort Collins, Denver Broncos, of course. Laredo, Texas, Kenneth. The Texans, I wonder how they're going to do this year. Los Angeles, UGA Bulldogs from Scott. Love it. Oceanport, New Jersey, the Mets. Akron, Colorado, Denver, Broncos. And Howard, Kansas, the Giants. Love it. Packers. Dave says the Packers, Bears still stink.
Oh, ouch.
Oh, there's a little bit of poke. Atlanta, the NBA, Lakers, and Byron, Georgia. Go Dogs! The Dolphins from Heidi. Des Moines, Iowa. Hey, speaking of Iowa, guess what's on tonight, Jamie Blackburn? Do you know?
Yes, it's the Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
Between the Reds.
If you did not see that last year, it was one of the coolest things. Anyway, so there you go. Natalie from Greenbelt, the Washington football team. Now the Commanders, just so you know. Washington, Phyllis. See that, Phyllis? No, I love the rivalry. Don't you, Phyllis? It's awesome. So, and Tracy's also the Steelers. Man, Phyllis and Tracy, both of them from Washington, D.C. and Steelers. Wow. Red Wings. I'm sorry. Olivia, Red Wings, and Emma, the Commanders. Okay, the Raiders. Fantastic. Katrina, welcome. All right, we're going to get cooking in just a minute. So the question is, where are you from and your favorite sports team? And I'm going to do some introductions in just 1 second. Well, we got everybody. Welcome, everybody. We got 91. We have almost 200. How many do we have, Zachary? There's almost 200 folks that registered for this thing. We know some folks aren't going to be able to make it. That's okay. We will make sure we get recordings out. And so we got Waldorf with the Commanders, with Siobhan and Richie, Texas, the Bears, the Cubs, and the Blackhawks. Love it. Fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you are at the data collection, compilation, communication, and reporting for project study management. Boy, if that isn't a mouthful. And for those of you who haven't yet, where you're from, your favorite sports team. And with us, we have Jamie Blackburn. He's the director of iAdvantage software. And Kelly Chapman, the scientist on the road. Where you at, Kelly? You still there? Don't tell me your video stopped.
Nope, I just turned it off. It's fine. I'm
You
still
gotta turn-
here.
There you go. She's still there. All right. So Kelly's out on the road. And so tell us a little bit about iAdvantage and what you guys are all about. It's founded in 2003. We know that. And you do a little bit of data collection, I think. Isn't that right?
That's right. Right. We're a software company founded out of a scientific company. And it was a science company, a software company built based on the scientist's need. We're headquartered in Cary. We're 30 years actually doing this for a living. We've been capturing, managing, and reporting on data. And most of our data ends up in reports to federal agencies, besides the sponsors who are wanting to collect it.
That's awesome. And you got a little bit of history with USDA and EPA right here, right?
Bit.
Just a little bit, which is why we're doing this and making sure that we're disseminating good information. Small business, your GSA schedule holder. So we'll get to that in a little bit. We want to welcome everybody that's here from USDA, a lot of different places. Some folks snuck in from FDA looking for some cross-pollination, I think. Look at that. How about that scientific piece? Cross-pollination between agencies.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, Dave.
And look at that. So the best briefing ever. Eric, I was saying I got something from you, Eric. I learned more about data collection, the pitfalls to avoid. That is exactly what we're talking about, right, Jamie Blackburn?
Perfect.
That's perfect in this wheelhouse. Dane, results are evident. We're going to talk about results only. You got that, Kelly? Nothing that's not result oriented and make them evident. And Christopher's the highest bar ever. Best briefing ever if I learned something new. Just one thing. All right. And Phyllis, if I come away with an improved data collection design, hey, we hope that's the case, Phyllis. Davis says it's freaking brief. Keep it brief. Alice, ideas are listened to and quality decisions are made. Love that idea, right? So imagine that, listening first and then making decisions. Love that idea. Robert, I learned about process to ensure 100% data integrity. Very important. Isn't that right, Jamie?
That's right.
Because
measure
not
one
all data can be 100% proven, right?
Right. We got to be quality at the end.
That's right. Because bad data in makes bad data problems for later. I know that for a fact. All right, Patrick, I learned about data resources that I can use in future residue studies. I do believe we'll talk about something you might be able to use today, Patrick. And Philip, I learned the requirement and the best way to provide metadata. We'll be touching on metadata too, won't we, Jamie?
That's right. Yep.
You got it. All right, please address this. Felipe says, address the real-time platform and targeted audience to ensure a full scope of agency input. Wow, that's a mouthful, but the real-time platform piece we're definitely going to talk about is that's really how it works, right? So in order to be able to effectively use your data, real-time is where it's at, right, Jamie?
All the time.
All the time. And Dane says, current process reviews for efficiency. How will we improve current processes without overburdening employees? I love that. How do I access the iAdvantage product? Cynthia, look at that. Do you see that? Well, that's a softball there, Jamie. Bam.
Perfect.
Right? That's a perfect one. All right. Sigging. If that's sigging, I'm not sure how to say that. I would like to have a video record, send me since I am not out, he's not in the office. So here, for everybody's knowledge, guess what? We are recording this and it will be disseminated two different ways. It'll be disseminated after this, a little later in the afternoon, you'll have everything, as well as later on, we'll repackage it and make it look a little nicer so that you can pass it on to everybody that you know. Eric, again, what are the major pitfalls that you see in data collection? How can we avoid them? Boy, oh boy, that's two softballs.
That's
right
easy.
here.
Yeah. That's exactly why we're here.
And then Phyllis, what impact will the new data collection designs have on program evaluations? I love those. They're awesome. And if you have anything that will make this briefing great, you pop it in the Q&A. We'll make sure that we get to those, right? And real quick, the session agenda goes like this. I'm going to introduce you to these folks that are here, talk a little bit about how you can work with us. We'll talk about data challenges, huge data challenges that cost lots of money to fix, and then dealing with the framework, because you get it right on the front end, Jamie. Guess what happens on the back end?
It's all what you expect.
That's right. You can actually use it the way you want, and using the scientific methodology, as Jamie said, this is coming from scientists that created it as opposed to IT folks that created it. Nothing against the IT folks that are here, right? We're not going to place judgment either on your favorite team, unless you're Steelers fans. We all know about those people. But besides that, flexibility, integrity, make sure we get your Q&A all the way throughout this. We want to make sure we keep these things going for you. Session docs, you will find the briefing presentation as well as iAdvantage's capabilities, and that's going into the chat right this minute. And if you have no idea where we are, we're on a Zoom. Can't imagine this is right. But if you go up the top, you can click the side-by-side mode, make us bigger. And make sure, since we have over 100 people here, to keep the chaos down. If you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A. And if you really have something burning, flip that hand up for us and let us know. The whole hand, flip the whole hand up. And if you have something you don't want everybody else to see, just send it to info@iAdvantage Software. It'll get to Jamie and he will disseminate it to the people that are necessary. And you're not going to believe this, Jamie or Kelly. This event is not endorsed or affiliated with the GSA. We have to say this because we have GSA schedules in hand, right, Jamie?
Yep.
And so participation by everyone in the government and you that are here is not an endorsement or commitment to purchase from any vendor. And that way we can actually communicate and there's no liability. So there you go. All right. With this, we're going to start with what in the world made you decide to come here? You're in management, you want your data to work, and you can pick as many as you want, by the way. You're in R&D and you have a current collection need. I'm tired of scrubbing bad data. I'm in procurement, want to know about iAdvantage, or somebody already asked that question on the way in, Jamie. Or maybe it's not even procurement. Maybe it's some of the program stuff. My boss made me come. There's got to be Weisenheimers out there with that. And have you ever been to one of these GovBriefs before? We are experiencing a lot of repeat customers lately, which is awesome because we love to get your input. We love to get your insight, and we want to make sure we're doing things of value to you. And with that, we're going to open it up for a little bit of discussion because Kelly wanted to talk about what is happening in your world when it comes to this. So Kelly, start throwing stuff out here to create the discussion points.
Well, basically, we are so happy to have you today. And for any of you that didn't catch it earlier, if it looks like I'm on a bus, I am. This is a mobile research unit and I'm out in the middle of nowhere. So that's why I keep turning my video off. I'm not going anywhere away from the presentation. But we definitely want your real input today. So if your boss really made you come, please answer that way on this survey. And what we would like to better understand is where you all are coming from in terms of needs and what you currently use and so forth. So as we go through today, please pop into the chat or the Q&A any information you'd like to share with us, because we know that there are so many different divisions of the USDA, of APHIS, of each different division, subdivisions, and so forth. And we want to better understand what your needs are. But we appreciate you attending.
Yeah, that's awesome. We definitely appreciate you attending. I just want to call out David, who's from Dallas, Texas, whose favorite sport is USA racquetball. That's a new one from me, Jamie. Just saying, I'm sorry. I was looking in the chat just so you know we actually do read the chat. And to your point, if you'd like to pop in something, because we have 122 people here. If you could pop any questions in the Q&A, that'd be really beneficial. If you're not sure where that is, it's right down the bottom. You can grab it and put that in there for us.
Dave, I'd also like to shout out and say to everybody, you need to answer these polls, please. If you're multitasking, just to pause long enough and answer the poll so that I don't harass people, because we like to get on up to like 90% or 100% of everybody answering. So those of you who haven't answered, please pop in on the next one and answer it for us.
There we go. Because I'm going to end this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We got 75 of them. So here we go. There's the results. 40% are in management, 27% have a current collection need. Wow, that's a high one. Tired of scrubbing data. Everybody should have picked that, just saying. But we'll and then procurement, we got 13% procurement. That's fantastic, especially this time of year. We appreciate it because we know you guys are just really starting to get stressed. And of course, we have people that boss made me come, and 81% are new. I love it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We love the fact that you decided to be here. And Joey raised his hand. So let's see if I can get to Joey real quick and see if there's something there that really needs to be addressed. Oh, what happened, Joey? Did you put your hand down? All right. Well, if you need to talk, Joey, let me know. We'll make sure we get you unmutified. All right. So big data challenges. We know that everybody's got them. Why do we have such big data challenges? Jamie Blackburn.
So these days we're all dealing with very similar issues. The first one is about 4 filing cabinets worth of data every 15 minutes. So just in the time since we've been here, yeah, we're almost there. We just got 4 new filing cabinets. That's 463 exabytes of data generated each day. And exabytes, at that point, it's almost, I don't know. You just
ridiculous.
You just want to shut down. You drink from the fire hose.
That's right.
This has created a huge management issue, right? So all these years, all this data, all these days of data, we have summed it, we have derived it, we've manipulated it. In some cases, we may or may not have security on it. There's poor documentation that even though we've collected data, we collect it again. There's huge integrity gaps, tricky to convert the data into valuable insights. That's probably the main reason we collect data. It's not just to keep it for record keeping, but to also learn from it, right? That's our number one. So growing data for use in business intelligence will not scale. It just won't keep getting better. We got to stop, drop and roll and consider what we need to do now. And that's why we're having this session. It's really just time to remind us some of the things we can do, the best practices.
Yep. And we were talking about this one earlier. Somebody had the issue with the data, right? With integrity.
Right.
Because that happens as well.
And,
so, yeah,
that you want the data quick. You want to see it. Your boss says, hey, I know you started a survey, or whatever way you collect data. It really doesn't matter because this is worthwhile to think about before you start doing it. We're going to go into that in a minute.
That's exactly right. So speaking of that, how do you collect your data? And this is where honesty is the best policy, ladies and gentlemen, where if you're collecting the data, are you doing it in spreadsheets, paper? So everybody knows you can pick as many as you want again, but we know which one's going to be the leader, don't we?
It always ends up. Yeah.
It always ends up the leader. So we're not going to tell you which one it is. We just already know. So, and you can already see which one is the one that's going to be there. So yeah, so one of the issues that we're talking about, we're going to be talking about is the data framework. And if the framework isn't solid, no matter what you're doing, the data is going to be difficult to manage on the back end, right, Jamie?
That's right.
That's just the way it is. So while you're doing this, let's talk about getting to the true value of data. Let's take this point, and then we're going to ask another one right after this.
So no matter if you're asking someone or you're being asked, these are the things you should always consider when doing this, because we sometimes jump to the end where we think we're just providing reports. No, you got to step back and say, well, first of all, I'm responsible. This is design. This is important. We need to know the purpose. They're going to want to know why. They even want to know how long it'll take, right? Nowadays, you want to know, does it take 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Is there anything worse than being asked a question that leads to 30 others? And next thing you know, you lost an hour of work. When asking for data, the initial values are critical and expensive. It's a lot of money to collect data. It's not just, well, let's just ask everybody. It really does take time. And then data analysis on the back end and keeping the data. And we just talked about this massive amount of data. Forget about the fact that it's backed up every night. There's a bunch of dudes hanging out trying to figure out how to keep this growing so that you have backups so you can fall back to whatever happened. And they collect it daily, and they put it into monthly backups and so forth. So it's really important that when you decide to do this, you take on this kind of overall responsibility.
Absolutely. And take a look at this, Jamie. Shocking, right? 79%. We knew it was coming.
It's always that. Yeah.
It's always this high. And if you take a look, what's interesting is that the paper forms, that creates a whole different level of problems, doesn't it?
Oh,
And human error starts plugging in spreadsheet human error alone, right? Between
That's
those
right.
two, right? And then phone and email survey tools, obviously, you want to get to a place where you're solidifying your data collection and standardize it and make sure that it is usable. Love that. Now, my next question, this gets us to the next one. So we collected it. So the next question is, how do you manage your data? Well, Dave, didn't you just ask me that? No, I asked you how you collected it. So this is, are you doing it by paper notebook, sort query from a database, right? A lot of folks are going to do that. Importing or exporting from Microsoft Excel, and custom data management software. Third party does it or some other way. So there you go. And we are getting to a place where we're going to talk about this.
And if anybody didn't answer the last poll, because I didn't want to interrupt Jamie, come on now, we need about 90% participation on these polls, please.
That's
So we
right.
can do the best job for you on this briefing.
That's
can you
right.
tell that Kelly's competitive? She's putting it right in there.
So with this, take us through what you normally see. Kelly, you're out in the field right now, right?
Correct.
So put your camera back on, by the way.
Yes, sir.
So you're out in the field and you're what are you doing? And you're collecting data right now. Is that what you're doing?
We typically work with all types of field study management and efficacy work. And yes, we actually are out in the field in rural areas with lack of connectivity quite often. And we directly collect most of the data into an iPad, so it doesn't have to go on paper first. And then it uploads as soon as the person's back to connectivity, if they don't have it in the field. We're taking plant data most of the time, sometimes soil or water data. And basically about 100% of the people that we work with historically worked on paper and directly collected data onto paper. And we had a very quick change over to the iPad as a data collection tool because the software that we used was very user friendly. And it was designed by those of us doing the work. So it is very easy to use just as paper was in the past in terms of collection.
So take a look at this. Are you shocked at these results? Exporting to Microsoft Excel? Are you shocked?
Not really, no.
Nah. Because if you're collecting it on a spreadsheet, chances are you're going to use the spreadsheet, right?
Correct.
So and this is good because this sets us up for what can we do to improve the framework from the beginning and get you to a place that you want to be. So let's talk about the overall strategy. Who wants to take this strategy side?
So the beginning strategy, when you start thinking about this, you either asking someone or you're being asked, you keep your requests to these people simple. You want to make sure that it's clear and understood. You want to consider that and consult with an expert. We find that this is probably the time we tend to rush through, but it's actually where we should measure twice and cut once. Mm-hmm. It's very important. This in scientific model, we actually spend a lot of time here. You decide what to collect and how to protect it. And basically that means that you're collecting, if there's really only 4 values, don't just offer the other all the time. You have to really think through what the 5th one could be. You have to collect a good product. Now we sell a great product here. We use a great product, have for years, but there's plenty of products, and there's plenty of ways to collect data. And we still feel like our methodology works across. And you want to collect clean and verified data. There is no second try. Every time you add in, or you come in on a Tuesday morning and find that the Monday morning request now requires you to either update or change, that's just more money out of your pocket, more budget being spent. And sometimes it's in phantom FTEs, right? People just spending the time because they want to answer it perfectly for you, than to ask them, well, you know, we did this wrong. We need to ask this again. So that's why we think you really need to start in with this strategy early and spend the time.
Yep. And Ian says, long story short, storing greater than 100K digital files so we can find them again, how to name them, and best file naming practices. That's one component of your collection, right?
That's
Making
right.
sure that your naming configurations actually mean something so everybody knows how to get to them. Great stuff, Ian. Love that. Appreciate that participation. See, it's painless to participate.
And I would just like to echo what Jamie is saying from a scientific standpoint quite often. And again, you know, everybody on the call is from different positions within the chain of bringing on a new software or handling data for your different entities. But to say that often by the time we work through looking at different softwares and work through procurement processes and get that in place, you're in a real hurry to get started with it. And we see what Jamie just said is that people don't spend enough time looking at the front end of this and the design process, because whatever you put in initially is what dictates what your researchers, what your data collectors, whatever they're doing, can put into the software, and that limits the quality of what you get out in your reports and so forth. So
Absolutely.
just to echo that.
Absolutely. And Nancy says, many parts of USDA APHIS utilize the same format, send people out in the field with an iPad. Beautiful thing, right?
That's right.
Awesome.
No, that's a great thing. So let's talk. So best practices for doing this. Take us through these
Sure.
points, because I think no matter how you're doing it. So obviously you guys know iAdvantage software because you work for iAdvantage, right? But besides that, the collection process should be done no matter what solution you guys choose, or or you know, even if you're using spreadsheets, right, Jamie? If you
That's
have
right.
the right framework, things still work better, right?
That's right. It's a bit about that upfront designing your protocols, designing your ideas coming through. So you carefully design and define those categories of data. You don't want to ask the same question twice. And so you want to make sure you break it up and that you have it brought into a very much a natural way of responding. Ensure all the data is entered using the same format. We live in the world of acronyms. Holy smokes, right? I mean, and not only that, some people will mistake.
Not a USD, Jamie, not a USDA or EPA.
No, but I have to admit, it's everywhere. And it's almost to the point we were talking a little bit earlier about, you know, how to organize data. This is where it all starts. Use closed-ended responses, yes, no, not, and have pick lists and such. Spend a lot of time thinking, what are all the things they can choose from? Numeric codes versus character strings. Again, so people don't misspell or misstate an acronym or something like that. If data is known, research the best method to handle it. We're going to keep asking for new things. Probably one of the reasons we're collecting is to find out more. So you need to spend some time really thinking of all the possible opportunities for a given name. If data scientist is analyzing collected data, you're going to have to make sure it's good format for raw use. And that means that when they need something, you haven't maybe put some things together. You know, the classic case is an address, right? A lot of times the zip code is enough, but theoretically they might actually want to know what address of what street the person is on. So give them all the details they need that they can make the decision later and not ask you to come back with a new request.
Real quick there, just one little simple thing about that is standardizing how you're going to say street. Is it ST? Is it
That's
ST
right.
period? Is it street? And goes, that's where data can really get complicated.
That's
in
right.
just the usage, because it could be misinterpreted. So everybody can know it could be misinterpreted as suite versus street, right? So
Right.
there's all kinds of things that create data problems on the back end if you just have it framed right on the front.
And nowadays, right, it took us 20 years to be able to do address correctly.
20 years, that's all.
You know, think about all the numerics and such and the GPS locations and things like that. In here, I talk about metadata. We're going to talk a second. This is the future, right? This is data about the data. This allows you not to have to be the expert on data, that other people can learn from your data collected. And there is so much stuff going on there. So in the future ready data here, we have it. This is data that is basically helps define or really describe the data you've asked for, so that when you do give it to data scientists or eventually get to an AI, an artificial intelligence type of solution, you can easily plug and play, so to speak, of providing that data so they get it. Nowadays, we all know what we hear about: application programming interfaces, APIs. I would probably put both of those into my list so that we can answer that acronym correctly. But now's a new one that you really need to look at. There's a whole new movement around data ontologies. It's about the organization and how we relate data to each other. It's kind of started with how we kept all our great books of the world in an organized way. Well, now we're going to have to get it down to our everyday world, because scientists actually need to share and give things to each other. So FAIR is actually trying to quantify that for science. And we feel like it's a good practice to look at when defining your metadata. So if you're creating a data value, I'm going to ask them a question, and this question pertains to X. Well, let's go ahead and describe what you think all the values of X are. What are the acronyms for X? What are the keywords for X? So if we're looking for these things, if I'm a data scientist, chances are I might be a person who's busy and I can't spend the time to ask you 100 questions before I get to the simple thing of doing reporting, say. So FAIR is a good approach. Data ontology is something you should look at. These are great approaches to how to start organizing your data, where before we literally thought we're just asking them questions. Now we're into, you need to really think out the data you're collecting and how it's organized.
And so did I get this right? So FAIR is like next gen Dewey Decimal System. Is that what I just heard?
You're making you careful with, we are a science-based community here, so everything seems simple, and that's a good way. I know how you think, Dave. So
but I'm not a scientist. That's the first thing you know.
That's right. But if you notice the word accessible, and that's the key thing right there. So we want accessible and interoperable. Well, it also means you might share data that they're not allowed to see it in certain cases. We're going to start putting that kind of requirement on data. You're allowed to see this, you're not allowed to see that, or you have to ask for permission, things like that. But if you notice the last part of the acronym, reusable. How many times have we collected data and then you get a survey later on and ask you the same question? The first thing you do, right? And it's usually up front, you get frustrated. Like, you already know this. Why are you asking it again?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important that you start building that catalog, or I'm not going to say Dewey Decimal, but you build that relationship and you have that bigger image of your data from the long haul. So 10 years from now, people find it is reusable, it is accessible and findable. So if you're doing important work today, chances are it's important later.
And I think Jamie and Dave, we should highlight the fact that Brooke has put something into the chat that's about retiring and someone else coming along behind that needs to access the data. And that is a perfect example, but also for all the people who are on here from different divisions, maybe even subdivisions within the same part of USDA, maybe just in different places. All of this is about trying to make sure that we standardize how data is put into a database, so that not only can we share it with the next person in our job, but also people across the country and people across different divisions of USDA, EPA, etc., so that we can make things more efficient, but also, as already mentioned by Jamie, even just find the information that we know is there somewhere.
At least you know where to stretch your question to.
And I think it also addresses the question. I think it was Ian had something in the chat earlier, and that is that, if you have a well-organized, well-functioning database, you have a lot less files to keep up with. And so you'd go to the database to one place versus having individual files for different data sets. So, and the third thing I just want to say really quickly, and I think Jamie will touch on this, but that, as you listen to this presentation and think about all of this, you might be saying, well, we're 10 years away from using artificial intelligence to try to glean information from this data. Well, now's the time to start working on the data so that the quality is there for 10 years from now to be able to actually build models and utilize it efficiently.
Sure.
Couldn't agree with that more. And guess what way would be fantastic to be able to make sure that the data is clean? I wonder about that.
Sure. So this is our whole pitch for today, which is to really think through your process. And we're saying that the scientific methodology has been a great way to go down this path. And the first one is to define the problem or data requirement. You then design the process that you're going to use to answer the problem. Sometimes it might be paper, it might be a spreadsheet, it might be a product like our eStudy product. But the fact is you still have to find the right one and the right solution. And whether or not it's a phone app and such, or an iPad app, you manage the process and the data collection, right? We always know that when you start something on Monday, they don't wait till the 2 months to get done. They want to know what's going on. Are you getting the updates? You know, you could tell when Kelly starts saying, hey, we need more people to respond to our surveys. She's used to this, that we need the current review of what's going on. And you need to be able to take that data in whatever way to manage it, to keep it current and keep it consistent, protected. Safety is a very important thing with data. In fact, one of the things I'll share the hot word in kind of in the FDA guys world is federated data, data we can share and data we can't. You need to communicate it and you need to report it. So there's got to be all these methods because we're not going to all get into one big database of the world. It's going to continue to grow. But the people here are smart enough that maybe if we start thinking, we can start fixing today what's going to happen later for doing all these different tasks.
And I got a question right here from Kevin Jackson. How does this relate to the NIEM National Information Exchange Model efforts? Great question. I don't know what you're talking about, Kevin.
I don't either, but I'm going to look it up.
So full disclosure, if you came in for all the answers, probably not going to get them all, but I tell you what we are going to find out, Kevin, is figure out what that is. And if you want to raise your hand and want to talk about what that is and the impact on you, we would love to hear that, wouldn't we, guys?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I'd love it, because we have 126 people here, so I might not be able to find you, but if you raise your hand, I'll be able to find you right away. So within this, the scientific methodology, what I love about this, because this comes from scientists, you guys are scientists, and I'm not. But the best part is you're pulling this in by running this process, the same process that you would be using to determine how it makes sense to use the data later, and making sure that that whatever you are gathering actually turns into something that you can use as far as your research. So it fits the research model. Let's talk about the design side of things.
I think Kevin's raising his hand.
Kevin, you got your hand raised?
Give us the name, yeah.
Hold on. Let me see you. Kevin, hey, hold on. Kevin Jackson, there we go. We got him. Kevin Jackson, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. And first of all, where are you from? You don't have to worry about your favorite sports team. Where are you from and what agency you with?
Washington, D.C. with the Food and Drug Administration.
There you go, FDA. Awesome. Thanks for doing what you do. What you got?
So NEAM is a federally managed program. It's a collaborative effort among agencies to develop data standards. It was started probably 20 years ago, and the goal of it is interoperable data through data standards. And they have 15 or 20 different data domains that different agencies and private industry support and help to govern. So
Nice.
it doesn't seem to be as well known as it should be, but
Yeah.
I wondered, that would get us halfway to the goal there.
Yeah. And so guess what? I love this, Kevin, because hey, we learned something. Everybody learns something new. So we're going to do some research on that for certainly before the next one, right, Jamie?
Absolutely.
Because
Actually, Kevin, while we've got Kevin where he can talk and we can hear, Kevin, we would love to set up a time just to talk with you specifically about that.
Sure. That'd be great. You've got my contact info, so.
we got you. We'll make sure we do that. We really appreciate that, Kevin. If you want to talk again, just raise your hand again. I put it down And I had somebody else had their hand raised and then decided to take it down. I guess we answered the question. Kevin did a great job by the way. Thank you very much for that. And so if we can get to some standards, good thing, right, guys?
That's right.
Right. So, and design standards as well. So if we start talking about how you can craft this, because EPA, USDA have a lot of scientists out there, let's talk about how we can design that methodology in.
Sure. So no matter which product or which method you're looking to collect, you start off in this phase. You're gonna maximize, kind of think through how you can collect it very cleanly. Again, we're scientists who design it for scientists, but we think it works elsewhere because in the end, there's a person on a bus who's going to conduct a trial or a study, and they're going to have to tell 20 people, and they're going to have iPads in their hand. They're going to go to town. So it has to be executable. It has to be very efficient and effective. We need to be constantly be in the creation of new studies, to be able to add new test systems. We're always, let's face it, technology is flying right now, and we have to accommodate that. And finally, and most importantly, it has to be extremely secure. And it has to protect, in our case, a lot of times we have to protect intellectual property. So it's very important that even though these things are being done and it seems very open, in some ways it does, well, in the end, it helps products get to market.
And you mentioned the federated data. I'm not familiar with that term, but so that means that there's certain information that stays inside, like the FDA or the EPA.
Yeah, I was at a precision medicine conference a year and a half ago, and they started really using this as a way to share data without sharing too much data.
Right.
You know, I'd hate to say it, but coming from private groups like GlaxoSmithKline, where I'm from, we didn't like to share a lot of anything at all. And science data needs to be shared. We need to do that. And that's where the federated word comes in, because there's things that will contribute elsewhere. I think that's changing. And I think we've seen it change drastically in the last 2 years.
Yep. And so obviously the better the design, then the better the collection mechanism, because that'll follow the design. And that gets us to the place of we get the design framework done, and now we start collecting this data.
That's right.
The biggest word there, 2 words, uniform and consistent.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because chances are, if you're going to collect data, you're going to collect it again in a different way for a different reason. But it has to seem very much lined up. So you don't want to have to reorganize it every time you go from, you say, year to year. In our case, when we do studies in the field, that will happen. Lots of places use different words. Right now, our product is being used in South America and such, and there's lots of different views, but they all have to come together to collect data in the same way about the same experiments. Online and offline, it's very important. A lot of times you're not always near a network. Even though that is getting better, you still, right now, I bet you that bus is struggling, and that's why she's going in and out with her video camera. But in our case, we've had to struggle with this about 10 years ago. We had to start really providing a way to not only collect offline, but also keep it encrypted, because it's still, the security is important. And then you have compliancy, and compliancy is going to increase. And we see it right now with a lot of pushes for more controls over user information. And then you have to have APIs. It used to be we would offer a system, you would log into the system, that's where everything was for that system. But now we like to do things our way, right? This is the age of the user, and we can decide how I want to combine my data, congregate my data, put reports together. And you have to be able, at least to be able to download, import, export. But not only that, there's more and more machines. There's drones flying around collecting data that need to go into a system like ours.
Yeah, and that's, so when you think about that, and you're going to talk about some of the reports, like your format, your reports specifically for EPA specific, and it may be the same data, right? It's just reformatted the way that EPA wants to see it, because EPA doesn't want to see the same information the same way that USDA does. They have different reasons for having the data. And that gets us to the next point, which is how do you communicate your data? And this is actually a two-part question for everybody. So how do you do it? Email, just flat out send an email and just collecting that information back and forth. Email with spreadsheets with raw data, executive communications with email summaries, dashboards and KPIs, paper reports. We know some folks are going to click that, review meetings. And then what's your role are you going to be assembling the results, or are you working to make the data make sense for the people that are making decisions? Does that make sense, everybody, from how we're using? So now we're communicating. We got it collected. Now we need to communicate and disseminate the information so decision makers can actually decide how to use it. And I have one here. Gabriel says, this all sounds great. The challenge is trying to work through this virtual environment we now work in. How about that? Right? Or we work in now. So there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly the kind of things that you're talking about. And it's never going to change, is it? Because you're going to have folks like Kelly that's driving around in an RV, and you have Jamie that's sitting in an office, and then you have folks in DC that have to be able to make some sense of this data, right?
That's right.
But I think that I want to say two things here. Number one is, for all of you who are multitasking, remember, you must hit pause on your other task now and answer this poll for us, please, so that we can get to 90% on this one. And the second thing is that that shout out in terms of how do you get this done virtually. This software we're talking about was actually way ahead of the curve when it came to remote working and so forth, because we were working with field sites around the globe, literally, and it was in multiple languages, and we designed the format so that it's easy to collect in the same way that the process happens wherever the data is being collected. So really, this software helps with that remote working, so to speak, and collecting data in multiple locations. So we definitely are addressing that concern.
Yep. And what Kelly's saying is she was cool before COVID. That's what I heard. So
this even precedes me. So neither Jamie nor I can take credit for all of this.
No.
So there you go. So we'll shut this down in 5, 4, 3, 2. We got 70 folks, so we appreciate that one. And 71, we got it under the wire. All right, so let's share these results real quick. So this is really interesting because this is the first time that we did this one. So email, that's just us communicating back and forth, and therefore we have to extrapolate stuff out of an email communication to put into whatever data we're collecting. Very interesting. Or our data that we're using. Raw data, 54%, and then summaries, dashboards, love it. That's really cool. And we have a lot of folks that are both assembling the results and making the data make sense, and probably making decisions as well. So that, because all that adds up to more than 100%. So really appreciate that. That's really cool stuff. That's really cool. Thanks, guys. And thank you, Kelly, for being the person to go, hey, pay attention. All right. So there you go. So let's talk about now we talked about, that's exactly what we're talking about. How do we get this so we can use it and report on it and then leverage it? So take us through this.
So equally important in the whole process, we talk about getting the data and designing it correctly, then collecting it. And we tend to think that that's the meat of our process. But in the end, this data needs to actually have a result and provide either insights or provide input elsewhere. And so you're going to need some basic concepts that in your tool decision, in your software decision. And we feel like we've spent a lot of time on this, because not only do we have to provide reports that are ad hoc, in other words, they have to update and tell what's going on, we also have to do things like actually submit pure controlled reports to the various government agencies, like to the USDA and EPA. It has to look the same. We can't have a lot of creativity beyond the first report. So we use templates and such. But we feel like it's very important that on any given day, you have reports that need to be consistent and repeatable. And then you also need ones that, hey, I was just thinking, what about this? And can you give me a report on that? I think we all have lived in this world long enough that we get both requests. And you have your standards, and then you have would this possibly be data that I could get today on this? So the reporting function is actually extremely important. Even though we're managing the data the ways we saw, now you have to be able to take it and put it together. Our tool has been doing this for a long time. We know that sometimes even the quick reports can be massive. And the chances are they're going to take that data and put it somewhere else. So between our data cipher and our e-publisher, we provide both capabilities, because a lot of times these are data scientists who really want to know, can I get all your data for last 10 years? Well, that alone, you say, what, when do you want to buy? Tomorrow? Well, it needs to be easy. Maybe not easy tomorrow, but it needs to be easy soon.
Yeah. And I think going back through it. So the framework, then your collection efforts, now dissemination of the information, very important. You guys are using scientific methodology, and whether or not, no matter what, you can use a scientific methodology within your tool. And the only reason Jamie's talking about his tool is because that's where he lives. But the best practices of all this can be extrapolated so that you can use it today. You can start doing this today.
Yeah,
and making sure that your framework is right.
Excel, whatever it is that you use, shared Excel sheets, Tableau, all these type products. We absolutely believe that this same methodology works.
Agreed. So now let's just talk about, I just did this actually. We designed it, we collected, now we reported it, and then it's like the shampoo, rinse and repeat, right?
That's right.
And I just want to add that we don't just believe it. We have been using this for many years, so we know it works. And as Kevin said about NIEM, we wish that the word had spread more quickly, because everyone who uses it seems to love it. So,
and that goes to what we're trying to do, right? So, and just so that, and you mentioned this earlier, Jamie, this works in the scientific environment, obviously, but if you just want to do surveys and ask questions, and maybe it's an HR question, there's no reason why the same philosophy doesn't apply, right? Designing it right, collecting it right, so that you can utilize the data, right?
Yeah, it's almost kind of a, I guess you would say, part of the culture of science. We actually don't request data unless we know how the outcome is. We've thought it all out. They spend a lot of time, just almost, I guess you would say, simulation. So if you keep going down this path, eventually you will find new things that are making you aware. And that requires you to go out and collect new data that might even make it better. So you start honing in on answers. It's a great advantage to spend all the time in these major pieces, so that you have that advantage later on to keep growing, right?
That's exactly right.
but also it's agnostic, I think, to Dave's point, Jamie, as to what kind of data it is. The system does not care. You can design your own variables, you design your own forms, if that's what you choose. And so it's very, very flexible.
That's right.
Now, we're about to go into propeller headland, because we're going to talk about what the basics on the IT side are like. So for anybody who's a scientist that is not a propeller head, do not go into a coma just yet.
That's right.
Keep your resuscitators handy. But we're going to talk about the fact that in order for this to work in the architecture, so your IT people, their heads don't explode, you got to meet this criteria, right?
Absolutely. So if you're developing an RFI or RFP and you're trying to figure out how to do something, we feel like these would be good questions to put into your RFI. I recently just filled one out, and these are the type of things we care about. It's cloud-based. The cloud is growing, and certainly with FedRAMP and such, there's great advantages going on here for agencies. It's 100% web-based architecture. It's important because you don't always have time to fixate on the individual client or the iPad, for instance, to have a local situation. You need to allow that web-based. Scalable. Is there anything worse to hear that, yeah, it worked fine for 10,000, but for 100,000, we're going to have to add a bunch. But that's what the cloud does for you. It allows for data exchange and integration. Pretty soon, we're going to be piecing together things out of the cloud to put together a single workflow or solution. And it's going to be to all of our advantage that we have these things accessible. 100% compliant with GXP and 21 CFR. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here on this particular event. But compliancy is going to grow because it's going to do a better job at protecting, and more than that, ensuring quality data is collected under that protection. Immediate access of all results. You can never wait till 2 weeks from now. You got to do it now. Quickly or easily customized to fit your science. Well, for us, oftentimes we have to be able to add something and we have to record that we've added it. We have to ask who's adding this and why did they do it? So that transcriptions and stuff of data really do make sense to the person who's looking at it at the end.
I wanted to highlight the all stakeholders because that means all stakeholders. Because if all of a sudden you start seeing something that's an oddity, very important to be able to tell early on if something needs to be corrected, because course change corrections when you see small things and say, oh, you might have to reword a question, right, Jamie?
Sure. That's
You
right.
might have to do something a little bit differently if your results are not meeting the results that you're really trying to get to. All right, so now so we just did the propeller head thing. Everybody still with us? Same. All right, so in utilizing this, and we kind of mentioned this, so in this instance, and this is where we're going to talk about your particular solution. I don't need you talking about others. You got plenty of people. If there's anybody else want to talk about a different one, we can. But we're talking about your platform, and that eStudy platform is what you're talking about and your ability to do this. It can be done with other platforms. Just wanted to let everybody know that we're talking about a specific product here. So go ahead and tell us on the input side what we're looking at and how this works.
So for years, this platform was actually designed because we were doing very large re-registration projects, and they were across large geographies with lots of different people, labs, field sites, etc. involved. And so we started out many years ago honing in on what it would take for this to be a good way to pull information together from most anywhere. And that is what we have done for many years now. And it started out, it was not web-based, now it is. But the studies, the efficacy work and so forth that we have done in agriculture has analytical labs, they have processing labs, we have field sites, we have to track samples. Those samples might be live tissue samples, they might be chemical samples, and so water samples, etc. And this product is where we bring all of that together. And as was mentioned earlier, we have logins and passwords and so forth. And we also have the ability to control what each individual user can see or not see, so that every site only works on what they have access to and can only see what you give access to. At the same time, though, all of that information can come together and be reported out. And in the push of a button, we can provide a 90% complete report that needs to go, let's say, to EPA for a residue study. And so that is very quick. At the same time, we can go back in the system very easily to Ian's question about finding data and find data from many, many years ago. The variables are standardized, so you could actually pull data across studies or across experiments and put it together. So all of this is how we use the platform and what it's designed for, so that you can bring data in and push data out in any combination that you want to.
And I find this incredible. So this is what you guys are seeing within your framework: projects, studies, trials. Crazy amount of data that you guys you're pulling in, right?
That's right. And it's very well organized. And one of our primary customers has always said the thing he's guaranteed is quality data at the end. It really shouldn't matter if you use the scientific process that you don't always know that you have quality data that you know why it was entered and why it was maybe updated and why it was kept.
And I think quality, we need to make it very clear that we are accustomed to the process of trying to set the quality up on the front end, which is what we talked about back several slides ago.
Yep.
And that includes everything, not only from what you call plant height, let's say, but also are you going to collect it in inches or centimeters and to what decimal places and so forth and so on. So we put a lot of focus on the front end and making sure that we have standardized how that data will be collected.
And I think what you just said right there. So think about, we talked about the street versus ST versus those types of things, but now you're talking about getting into the nuances of the accuracy of the data after the fact to say, hey, we might only need it to the, to the 1/10, right? Or something, but you might need 4 decimal points for a study in the future. So if you have the ability to collect it that way, it may be beneficial to do that.
That's right.
And so it's amazing to see. First of all, look at the trials, folks. 18,000 plus trials, and the growth monthly is 7%. I think a lot of folks are in this place, and you want to be able to use that data in the future. So I appreciate that very much. We're going to get to a place where we're answering the last poll, I promise.
Well, I just want to say, as you start this poll too, that people realize that data can be imported. This software is very compatible with Excel collected data and so forth. So don't think that puts you out of the ball game for utilizing this with historical data.
And I want to point this out. If you have help, you need help with it. This is so that you guys can continue the conversation, and Jamie or Kelly or both of them or somebody else on the team, and it can be a high level conversation or other. There you can do demos, you can ask for a pilot. There's things that are happening by fiscal year end that you need to be involved in. That's what this is for. If it's urgent, please let us know so that we can help get you to where you want to go. And especially when it comes to having something that's budget driven.
Absolutely.
And if you don't want to hear from Jamie or Kelly, don't answer this question.
That's right.
Is that they want to help you get to where you want to go. And it's not just, you don't have to worry. It's okay if you don't have an issue. This is for being able to solve a problem. All right. Participation is easy for the rest of the game here. Let's see if we have anything here did we miss anything, Kelly? I know you were kind of tooling around in there. We're not answering anybody that was Pittsburgh Steelers fan, just saying. Just kidding. All right. So I think we got most of that there. Anybody got any last minute questions? Because we'll get to the session takeaways from this. As far as being able to say what you guys understand or what you know about your platform was built to take advantage of the scientific methodologies, but you will help somebody if they're just wanting to use the spreadsheet, right?
Absolutely.
So, and what does it
love
cost?
problems.
What does it cost for them to talk to you, Jamie?
Anything and everything is open, and we cost nothing, and we love to hear about problems.
That's right. And you're already going to be talking to some folks, especially about Kevin wants to talk about.
Kevin's going to teach us
NEIM. So that's one thing we're doing. So for sure. So, and good design equals good data. I don't care how you're doing it. It doesn't matter how you're doing it. And then as long as you're doing this right on the front end, you will be able to successfully scale. Otherwise, you're going to spend a ton of money and AI and all the rest of the stuff to try to clean up this stuff so that you can actually utilize the data. This is nothing shocking, ladies and gentlemen. We've been talking about this for a long time, right?
And it is definitely a pay now, pay later situation.
You pay less now.
Design it correctly now, or you pay for it on the back end when you want to utilize the data in a different way.
Yep. I was just talking to somebody. This just came up to my mind, and they said they made a mistake in putting a bridge piling in. And they said that in this was another federal agency. They made a mistake putting the bridge piling in the design of the bridge piling. The bridge piling goes right next to a gas line. They literally can go down 1 inch a day to be able to protect the vibrations for the gas line. And it's going to take them years to replace that because of the design flaw. Good design keeps those things from happening, right?
That's right.
Right. So with that, I said earlier, you don't have to purchase from iAdvantage, but guess what? If you'd like to, if you want to check more about them, they are a small business. They're DUNS none. We need to update because you can't use the DUNS number anymore. So we're going to update that for everybody and put out the UEI. And but the GSA contract does still work, which is attached to the right UEI.
Yeah.
And then if you need to use any particular type of mechanism to purchase at the end of the year, that you'll figure that out, I'm certain.
We welcome your comments in the chat box on whether you thought this was what you expected, better or worse, as Dave keeps talking.
That's right.
Absolutely.
You can certainly do that. You will get a recap email next week with all the rest of the stuff. You will get one today that'll have the video and the rest of the information, but you'll get one next week that'll have a nicer viewpoint, kind of finished. And you'll also be able to engage them. And if you answered the question here, there's 7 of the folks that are asking for follow-up. That will be happening today. Jamie will be reaching out to you to do that. And we're over by 2 minutes, but we will answer any questions that you guys have. Thanks for joining us. If you want to reach out to Jamie, Kelly, or me, I don't have anything that's of value, but if you want to reach out, you can do that anyway. We appreciate you guys. Not sure what is expected, but very enlightening. Look at that, Susan says. That's awesome. Excellent presentation, Candace says, and you're welcome. And so we appreciate you guys. Carnvey, very cool. Natalie, you're welcome for the presentation. Any parting comments, Jamie and Kelly?
None at all. We're over, so I better say goodbye.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving us your time. We
Yes.
appreciate it.
We love it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll make sure you get what you need. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Kelly. Always great. Stay safe out there in the RV land. We'll see you guys.
Bye-bye.